All right, good morning, everybody. Hoping everyone's having a very nice Sunday morning. That winter weather is starting to hit us now. I think it's getting a little cold. Carlos, you look a little chilly over there. Oh,
Oh, it looked like I froze for a minute.
yeah, you did.
Oh, kind of weird. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Wherever you may be watching us from, it's a beautiful, cold, really cold Sunday morning here in Southern California. I am in the street. I'm on my way actually to downtown Los Angeles by Skid Row to take some supplies over there to this organization that's doing an amazing job over there. But it is good to be here this Sunday morning. Um, it is again cold, crisp. Feels like Christmas. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody, I see a lot of people on the streets already. There's a nearby farmers market by my house, so I saw a lot of people out there already. It's good. It's good to be here, but our Sunday, this Sunday, we want to be able to dedicate it to all those people that are really suffering so much right now in Kentucky, in all those 6 states actually that were hit by tornadoes. Uh, Total devastation out there. But that's what we would like to dedicate this show to this morning, to all those people out there facing very, very harsh conditions.
Yeah,
Margaret.
Carlos, it was an incredible cluster of tornadoes, and tornadoes usually are not this common in the wintertime in December. But there were tornadoes that hit Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, uh, Arkansas, Missouri. I mean, this whole region was not left unspared. And of course, much of the damage and much of the tragedy occurred in Kentucky. And I think it's good for us to spend a little bit of time talking about this, but because I think it also is relevant to what what the kind of struggles we face as progressives, as organizers, organizing workers, unions, etc. Because there's a good number of people who died who were working at the time in warehouses. But before we get into that, I think it's good to also point out that you know the increase in these tornado clusters is not necessarily a coincidence. It is a result of climate change. And what climate change does is it shifts the probability of having extreme weather events. So before, it was not so likely to have these sort of like once in so many year type events happen so often. But because of climate change, the probability of these events happening increases. So that's why we are seeing more extreme weather events. So there is a probabilistic relationship between what is happening with the changing climate, the warming of the planet, and these extreme weather events. So long as we don't address the fact that we're warming the planet beyond habitable levels, then we're going to see more and more of this happen. So we have to really face the fact that these issues are a result of our inability to address climate change properly and basically, end our reliance on fossil fuels. So we have a lot of work to do in that area going forward. And this is just one tragic result of inaction from our political leadership. And now,
Yes. So one of the things, Margaret, I was reading about this because I wanted to know, when did we actually start seeing the climate change debate inserted into any kind of conversation? And that has been going on since 1950, where scientists began to raise the issue. That was 1950.
mhm.
And back in the 1980s, the conversation, began to rise up even further, bringing it up to date. we are seeing this conversation now be a little bit more serious, not with the seriousness that it deserves, but since the 1950s, where scientists first, um, when they first brought up.
Oh, I think I lost you there, Carlos. Well, to riff on Carlos's point, yes, I mean the discussions around climate change, I think they actually even go farther than back than the 1950s. Oh, there's Carlos. He's back.
I don't know what's going on over here.
I think this is better.
Yeah. All right.
Let's switch our places. There we go.
So since the 1950s, when they first brought it up, this kind of conversation, obviously back then they didn't take it as serious as now. But we are seeing, the world talking more about climate change, getting more concerned. The way I wanna frame this is that there are certain states that they don't believe in science. There are certain countries that don't believe in science, that disregard it. There are certain leaders that mock at the conversations of climate change. But what we are seeing is that a lot of these countries that have usually ignored conversations of climate change or disregard it altogether are being affected heavily. Their infrastructure is being decimated by climate change. Now, with that being said, it is important for people to understand that a lot of times progress is being kept from really bringing good changes, necessary changes, because of this kind of leadership that exists, that disregard science, that disregard climate change, that disregard these conversations. Nature tends to help a little bit and bring about, forceful conversations into climate change, but at a cost. It has a cost. The total devastation that we are seeing in these states, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Without taking serious precautions and building infrastructures, there's a lesson to learn. And I hope that we are paying attention.
Yes, and for everyone who's joining us right now, we didn't do our introduction, so I'll go ahead and do that now. You're watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. I'm your co-host. I'm a scientist, engineer, and occasional journalist. My name is Margot Paez. And this over here is Carlos Marroquin, your other co-host on the show. He's a wonderful grassroots organizer with an amazing and rich history in the movement and in union organizing, etc., etc. So thank you very much for being with us today. And we are talking about climate change, the recent tornadoes that happened over sort of in the Midwest South area, and the fact that we're also going to be having some intense weather events across the western states, likely also a result of climate change, and how all of this connects to centering the workers struggle and within the progressive movement, because that's really important for us, and it's all absolutely connected. So thank you for being with us today. We're very excited to have this discussion. So Carlos, please continue your thought.
Yeah, well, again, the patterns that we are seeing, some of them very, very extraordinary and unusual, because the time of the year that we're in right now, this is December, for crying out loud, for us to be able to witness what we are witnessing in those mid states is concerning, alarming, and heartbreaking, because in the month of December, there is usually no tornadoes. There was a factory in Midfield, Kentucky. They were actually working around the clock, putting orders together for candles. This is their peak season. That factory was devastated by this tornado. One of the tornadoes that actually hit travel an excess of over 200 miles. That's historic in itself, as humongous, literally destroying everything on its paths. There were trucks, literally those 18-wheeler trucks that were tossed into the air like toys. This one factory had, I believe the numbers, and I may be mistaken, but over 100 employees working at that time.
That's right.
The number of deaths right now that are being reported are over 25, but is expected to really grow to over 100.
Yeah, I thought that the number was much higher already for the factory, for the candle factory. But go ahead. Let me double check that.
Right. But the numbers are going to grow, and I would not be surprised is it reaches much higher numbers because of the fact that this tornado actually happened at nighttime, and that creates other problems as well. People not being able to see the lights go out, and etc. All these things. But a lady was being interviewed where she actually saw the roof of the building collapse on top of them, and she was pinned under, you know, so many feet of debris on top of her, and all this other stuff is horrendous. The kind of experience that these people have faced, particularly at this time of the year, people are suffering already. But something, Margaret, that is being addressed and is being talked about is the kind of infrastructure that is in place right now that is already suffering and broken, and the kind of fights at Washington that took place recently, just trying to pass an infrastructure bill, the resistance, because of the kind of money that they say that it will put the U.S. further into debt. But the fact of the matter is that when we do nothing, the cost will be much higher, much, much higher, because now the infrastructure is not there anymore. You're going to have to spend this money regardless. So it makes no sense when we're trying to save a penny, you know, and end up paying $100 trying to save a penny,
Yeah.
or even more.
Yeah. To add to that, so there was about 110 workers in that factory, and they've only been able to rescue about 40 workers. So, I mean, that's 60% of their workforce missing, or at least 60% of those who were working at that time. So, I mean, that's an incredible tragedy. So many families in the area who have lost a loved one. It's incredible. And not only was this candle factory hit, there's also an Amazon warehouse that was completely also, I think, also demolished. So far the reporting is that there's 6 dead, but they have no idea how many people were actually working in the building, because Amazon is claiming that they don't keep track of the number of people who are working in the factory. And simultaneously, Jeff Bezos was busy congratulating some astronauts who had just returned back from a Blue Origin trip, rather than actually showing up in Kentucky and making sure that his workers, his warehouse, had everything they needed to rescue the Amazon workers. So, the Jeff Bezos, I mean, it's so obvious that he could give, crap about the people who work for him, so long as they make him money. He doesn't care. I mean, it's really disgusting, right? And this is the situation that we're facing, that workers are consistently being put at risk, not just by these extreme weather events that are a result of climate change, but also because of the pandemic. And we're seeing these new variants coming about. The Omicron variant is spreading now throughout the world. In the UK, they're saying like within a couple of weeks, they expect that to be the dominant variant, and it's highly contagious. We don't have a lot of information about it, but of course, like who are the people who are constantly interfacing with strangers and disgruntled people? There was somebody on a recent airline flight who like assaulted a flight attendant, right? So the workers are the ones that are constantly being forced to interface with these dangers, whether they're working late nights to try to meet our consumer needs, our overconsumption desires. Like we have to have candles, like all these candles, I don't know, in every different color. We need everything the next day from Amazon. Like we are putting their lives at risk as much as the billionaires who run these businesses are. But the billionaires who run it care even less. They just want money. So there's a big problem here that's not being addressed, and part of it has to do with corporate power. Part of it has to do with the way our whole society is designed, which is based on ever never ending economic growth, which is also tied to never ending consumption, because you have to keep putting out new things in order to keep that cycle going. And we throw things out. We don't give it a thought. We don't appreciate the effort that was put into it. And I mean, things are built to be broken on top of that. So we end up damaging our environment in the process, and it's a whole cycle, right? It's just a whole cycle of damage and disintegration, and we have to stop as a society. We have to reorient ourselves and say, this is enough. We cannot do this anymore, because we're hurting ourselves. We're not just hurting the planet, but we're hurting human society as well. We are basically going to bury ourselves under our choices that we've made that we don't have to make. We can make different choices, but we've decided that we want to make these choices, and these are the results. These are the results of it. We're putting other people's lives at risk, and I don't think that's okay.
Right. So what's happening is we're putting profit before, human life, before families, before workers. And that has been the pattern for the past several decades, that profit has become more important than anything else. Never mind the fact that we know we need to make sure that there are safety nets, in place for the people. Never mind that people are facing dire conditions and situations as a pandemic rages on. Never mind the fact that the cost of living has increased leap and bounds, and while wages continue to be frozen. Never mind that we are seeing devastation after devastation, in widespread devastation, actually, on top of widespread devastation, and a melting of many of areas in the world that usually uh, you know have to be have certain weather conditions that keeps normality. And never mind that all these things are happening, they don't care. We still continue to put profit before anything, before human life, before our world. So until that changes, until we have had enough, and I don't know when that time is going to be, I don't know what it's going to take for our leaders in Washington to wake up, for a lot of these corporate Mongols to wake up and be brought to justice, because many of them are committing criminal activity under the name of business for profit, and it's affecting the lives of millions of people. Until that happens, we may continue to see these things come about time after time and just react to them and make excuses. and continue to put up money, unlimited amount of money, to try to patch up, to create band-aids, because they actually don't have a real plan in place to address these conditions and these situations and these issues. No, we need an infrastructure that will sustain and that will be able to handle, the conditions that the world is facing right now. And when we say infrastructure, market,
Mhm.
we're not talking about just bridges and roads. We're talking about entire systems, that exist, that are collapsing, or that may be in the in the in a state of chaos, or being so fragile that they're about to collapse. So many systems. When we're talking about systems, we're talking about, look what happened in Texas with the electricity, right? Etc. I mean, we can name so many different systems that exist that are very weak.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of work to do. And for us at the grassroots level, Margaret,
Mhm.
or for us to continue to raise our voices, because had it not been for grassroots organizations, all these beautiful organizations that focuses on the environment, right now we will be trying to play catch up in just a lot of the conversations that have already been taking place. Thank goodness that there has been organizations fighting on these issues, bringing awareness, because we're able to turn to them and we're able to listen to what they are saying. This is why it's important for us progressives to continue to raise awareness, to continue to educate the public, to continue to be visible and voiceful to these issues that we care about at every level, worldwide, national, state, and local. Bring it down to the neighborhood, to your block. There are issues taking place in your block that need to be addressed. So we can get involved. We should not be discouraged. We should be doing the opposite right now. We should pretty much triple down in what we're doing and not run away. This is the time to rise up. This is the time to really show up, stand up, and be counted.
Absolutely. There's no better time than now, and we're running out of time in a lot of ways. So, even more so, there's no better time than now to actually get involved and do something and fight for ourselves, because our leadership is not able to do that. And we have to put pressure on them, but we also have to take a little bit of that power into our own hands and make things happen for ourselves too, because we don't have time anymore to waste on waiting, right? I think a lot of people are still in this mode of waiting for our politicians to take the necessary action, but we can't wait for them to do that anymore. And the sooner people realize that we are the only ones that are going to make these changes, the faster these changes are going to be made. So we have to come up with grassroots solutions, and that requires everybody being involved and everybody thinking along these lines of, what can I do? What can I do within my community? What can we do together? How can we use the technological resources that we have? How can we use the human ingenuity that we have to come up with solutions to stop this from happening? How can we use solidarity across different groups, across different nations, to come together and unite and to make these things happen? We don't have to rely on the people that we elected who represent us, because obviously they're doing a terrible job of representing us, and they're only giving in to corporate interests who are paying them and funding their campaigns. So, why are we ceding them so much power at this point, right? Like, why are we letting them be in charge of our future? We have to be in charge of our future. So I agree, Carlos, that now is a time to get organized. Now is the time for the grassroots to take control of the situation and really make things happen, and really come out there and support workers. And Carlos, we are seeing some good things happen. For example, Starbucks workers were unionized. That's the first time ever that a Starbucks store had a union or has a union. And Starbucks, the company, did a lot to try to stop that. They tried to dilute the voting pool. They all of a sudden they were ramping up hiring so that they would bring new people on board who wouldn't be as familiar with the dynamics of what was going on in the store, and so that in hopes that they would vote against the union. They were doing presentations like Amazon was doing against unionization, and still in at least one store they managed to get a union. So beyond those, all fighting against all those odds and all that money, they still were able to unionize. And this is a significant win for labor, and we cannot underestimate that. And we have to recognize that labor is really starting to see, like, hey, we can do this. We can have unions again. And it's going to take time, but we're going to see more unions, and that's very exciting. And we're going to see more workers coming together and exercising their power, and that's very exciting and very important. And I want to make a point about this, Carlos, because I saw something on Twitter recently from a libertarian website, and they were trying to poke fun at something that Bernie Sanders said in a tweet, which was that Bernie was like, the CEO of Starbucks makes $15 million. Surely they'd have enough for all their workers. And so they retorted, well, actually, if you divide the number of employees they have by 15 million, it turns out like you can only give them like $100 flat. And so I thought about that. I was like, well, that's not a very good retort, because actually what that shows is that Starbucks is a completely unsustainable business, because the average employee at Starbucks makes $12,000 a year. That's poverty. That's poverty wages. And on top of that, the CEO makes 1,200 times the average employee. So 15 million to $12,000 is about 1,200 times more money that they make per year as CEO, one person. So to me, what that tells me is that Starbucks is actually running a slave organization, because they have expanded their stores, forced the shutting of the mom and pop coffee shops, so that they could extract more wealth from the average worker and give it to the few rich elites at the top. So they are making 1,200 times as much as the average employee. That's slavery. So thank you, Libertarian Party, for pointing out the fact that Starbucks is a slave organization, and that no company that has that kind of gap between the CEO and the average worker of 1,200 times, that's 1,200 times more in pay, is a sustainable business. You cannot pay your employees at least $15 an hour. Then you are not a sustainable business. And I don't even know if $15 an hour is sustainable either, but that's like the bare minimum they're asking for. So it seems to me that this whole model is just should be illegal, and a company should not be allowed to expand to be that big, right? Like you just shouldn't be able to have that many stores if you can't pay your employees, at least $30,000 a year.
Exactly. I mean, you put it together very well, Margaret, because what we are seeing with a lot of these corporations that brag about, how many employees they have, and, their success and everything, is that the side that they usually don't tell you and don't tell the public is, their business practices, their outrageous business practices, that are pretty much keeping employees, poor and taking advantage at every single way possible, creating very hazardous working conditions. You know, they don't care about, you know, the conditions on the work sites. They do the very, very minimum. I just came from the post office, just retired from the post office. And I can tell you this, the working conditions at the post office are criminal in many cases, are very alarming. As a postal employee, I couldn't talk, I'm barred by the law to make statements to the media and what have you. But I am dying to be able to say of the working conditions the postal employees have to face on a daily basis. Horrendous conditions. I could walk into any post office here in Los Angeles, walk in there, and the filth that exists in those facilities. There is no custodians. Restrooms go literally weeks without being cleaned. Garbage is not collected. Employees end up doing that on their own just so that they can have some form of, of clean, of some work, clean conditions there. They do it themselves. The long hours that employees have to work, the work that is piled up on them on top of their own regular 8 hours of work that they carry on, being forced to work overtime. Some of them working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, some even more than that. I mean, the amount of stress that exists the minute that you walk in there, being belittled by supervisors, called names, because they expect you just to take the work and say nothing back. These are some of the conditions in some of our post offices going on right now. The abuse by management when they remove hours of work when people have hit the clock and they make excuses as to why they took the money out. Those are criminal activities by management. They're not supposed to touch the clock. And that happens a lot. And I can go on and on and on about the conditions the postal workers are facing right now. The vehicles that are breaking down, that are not properly maintained, the cost or put employees at risk, at high risk, because of lack of maintenance of these vehicles. So, when I hear all these people brag about how big they are, how, how much good they're doing to the community, I beg your pardon. Because the fact of the matter is that they are creating very serious conditions for workers and their families. And yes, people need a job. And sometimes people take jobs and don't say anything because they need to feed their families. So they keep it quiet. Or many employees and workers are afraid of retaliation by their employers. And that's why they keep quiet.
Yeah.
Because they may have a sick one at home that depends on that check. Or because they have a mortgage payment and they cannot afford not to be paid. So they take on these abuses. They put up with these things. Not because they want to, it's because they have to. So I think that we need to be more forceful. We need to stand up. We need to rise up. We need to unionize.
Mm-hmm.
But you could have a union and you could have a weak union by not having participation of the members. Members need to participate. It's not enough just to join a union and say, look, I'm a member now. I'm a card carrying member of X union. That's not enough.
Right.
You need to participate. You
Right.
need
Exactly.
to involve. You need to ask questions. You need to go to the meetings. You need to bring awareness of what's happening in your workplace, in your work site. You need to write up statements. You need to challenge. You need to do all those things. You need to talk among yourselves as employees. Talk to one another. You know, put pressure on your leadership, your union leadership. Let them know what's going on. That's how changes come.
Hmm.
And that's what we need to do, folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Your union is only as strong as your weakest member or as your members, because the union isn't like it's not like some institution that you just go, you send a little message to, and they go do things for you. The union is you. Like, you're involved in the union. You make the decisions. You and the rest of your coworkers are the union. It's literally you. So you have to be involved in your union and make demands and come together and do actions and go to the table with your employers, et cetera, to get things done. The union cannot just do it for you, because, as I said, the union is you and your coworkers. That's what a union is.
I like this, the fact that union starts with the letter U. You know?
Yeah.
So when people ask me, well, what about the union? I always refer them to that. Union starts with the letter U. You are the union. It
Exactly.
starts with you. You make things happen. You unite.
Mm-hmm.
You fight back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You ask questions. You challenge. That is union, folks.
Yes. You. The you in union is you.
Yeah, union.
I like that. I like that. I mean, I learned that too. Actually, I was in the union for a while. I still pay union dues here at Georgia Tech, but I was involved a lot over the pandemic and trying to convince the university to do the right thing. Of course, that didn't happen, and we were trying to get hazard pay for a lot of the workers, and that was really where I really learned, like, yeah, the union is not like some abstract thing, or somebody sitting behind a desk that you just go and you give them a little note, and like, yeah, I have this complaint, and they go take care of it. No, it's like you whatever happens about this issue that we're raising, you have to come and participate and make it happen, and kind of put yourself out there as part of the group, but as part of the union. But like, it's not somebody else is going to do it for you.
Right.
Everybody has to put in the effort to make it work. So yeah, it's a good lesson to learn, and I was really glad that I could be part of that. But yeah, these are just some of the small things that we have to do as workers, as organizers, as progressives. We have to come together. We have to form organizations in the workplace, outside of the workplace, in the community, in the legislative halls, wherever. We have to be present, and we have to do the work ourselves. And it's hard work, but there's no other way around it.
Right. And I've been talking about forming a people's union.
Hmm.
I've been talking about that with several people. Is that you have labor, but what about forming a people union to bring the
Yep.
people together and vote on the issues,
Yeah,
vote
like
on actions? What what can we do to
yeah,
fight?
like a kind of like a general assembly type thing. There's a debtors union too, called the Debt Collective, which is really, they're doing really amazing work. They actually, one of the big actions that they did recently was that they bought up, I think it was bond loans. Like when a person goes to prison and they need to be, they want to get out before the trial, they're like held on bond or something, and you can go and you can take out a loan, I guess, to do that, to pay the bond. And so they bought up a bunch of this debt, this prison debt related debt, and basically freed these people of their debt related to some crime that they allegedly committed, or whatever, for whatever reason they were arrested. But their main thing also has to do with student debt. So it's a debt collective. They're a union of debtors, and anybody can join and participate. And the idea is really to use their power and to exercise their power as the fact that they hold this debt, and if they don't pay it, then the people who, the banks that lent the money, then they don't get that money, right? Like they don't get any of their profits, and all that debt is being resold, repackaged, and other people are making bets on whether you're going to pay it, right? So everybody, all these people, these investors, these bankers are trying to make money off of your debt, which students were forced into. So the debt collective, this debt union, are saying, like, let's just exercise our power and say, no, we're not going to pay this debt. We shouldn't have been forced to go into debt for education in the first place. So yeah, I think creative ideas around unions, not just in the workplace, but like what you're saying, like a people's union, is a really great idea.
Well, people form super PACs.
Mm-hmm.
These are like unions.
Mm-hmm.
They pay, they give money,
Mm-hmm.
issues or bills
Mm-hmm.
or candidates, and then they push their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we got to think about these things. So we do have organizations that pretty much form in the same manner, but it's all about uniting, organizing, educating, and calling to action.
Right, exactly.
Organize, educate,
Call
and
to action. Yeah, absolutely.
that's what we need to be doing all the time. And I'm very hopeful because, again, we are seeing people rising up everywhere. Whether it's like people fighting for tenants, tenants' rights. We have tenants' unions. We have homeowners' union, where people fight for homeowners' issues and foreclosures,
Right, yeah.
etc. We have people that are fighting for, like you name, educational students' rights, climate change. We have people organizing and fighting in behalf of those that are incarcerated, etc., etc., etc. We have to be able to continue to do this at a much faster pace, stronger, wider. You know, we have to go deep. We have to go high. We have to go at every angle. We have to come three ways: hard, fast, and continuously. That's how we have to operate.
Yep. And I want to throw one other thing out there that I just learned about recently. It's called self-issued credit. And this was something that is highlighted in a story. I think it's called Deli Dollars, or something like Deli Dollars. And it was Jason's Deli. So in the early 90s, some farmers somewhere, I don't know, maybe the East Coast or something, were going through a recession. And so they were like, they couldn't get a loan from the bank. Like the bank didn't think they were worthy of getting loans. So what they did was they started issuing their own money, basically. And so it's called self-issued credit. So what they did was like, look, I produce tomatoes, potatoes, etc. So I'm going to issue these dollars, and let's say I issued like $10 in farm bucks, right? $10 worth of farm bucks. And you, Carlos, you buy this $10 worth of farm bucks with the guarantee that in a year, or maybe at the end of the season, you can come back and you can purchase $12 worth of farm goods. So the idea is that you can actually self-fund your own projects with your own sort of local currency that you as a producer back. So it's not just like a farmer, but actually a deli owner could do it, a coffee store owner, a coffee store company could do it, like a coffee co-op, whatever, a grocery co-op. I'm just thinking like restaurant co-op, a shoe co-op. And I'm saying co-op because I imagine like this could be a model for like these democratically run businesses, these mom and pop businesses could be issuing these credits. And then what they do with that is that it's basically a loan to you and your business to develop whatever it is that you need. Maybe you needed to renovate the kitchen in your restaurant. And then in a year or X number of months in which this deli dollar matures, the person comes back and they get a little bit more than what they purchased it at the price of. So it's a really great, innovative way to get around the banking system as well, and to fund yourself as a member of the community, as a business, as part of the community. And it's like, I think it's great because it's like a collective thing as well, because it's based off of the trust that you have within your community, and your community respects you and your business. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. I can get $10 worth of submarine sandwiches for $8 in 3 months. And the business is being funded to improve, and it's all circular within the community. And I think we need more of this. We need to organize ourselves within our local communities and become tighter, and keep out these corporate powers as well. So I just want to throw that out there as well as a complementary idea to all of this, because we need to be more community oriented and keeping ourselves and our money within our communities, and not letting it be extracted to corporate powers like Starbucks.
Excellent. We have to be able to create ideas, or act on ideas that are simple, that helps community, that helps build up small businesses. I mean, right now, this is a big season of the year for retailers, for restaurants, for a lot of these small businesses. I hope that those that are hearing us and listening to us, that they support small businesses. If I have a choice between this and that, I'm always conscientious, and I always try to make those decisions that will support small businesses. And one of the things that I do pretty often, sometimes when I have spare time, and mind you, I don't have spare time, but I make time. It's like today when I'm going to Skid Row, I'm planning to stop by Little Tokyo. This is a area in downtown Los Angeles where there's a lot of shops, a lot of stores, a lot of
good food,
restaurants that are all small. You've been there, Margaret. We went there several times to
oh yeah,
to have
love the food.
a bite. But I like going, and I usually like to ask for who the manager is. I ask for the manager, or if there's an owner, and then they come and greet you, and I congratulate them on their work. I let them know how much I appreciate their business being there, and that if there's anything we can do to support them, to please let us know, and that I will be sharing these things with some of the local officials that I interact with, their business. And they open up. A lot of them open up, and I tell you what their concerns are. And when you start knowing this and realizing this, we're in this thing together, folks. And a lot of them are trying to do good. And they're trying to literally, help other people by employing them, and offer service to a community. This is what small businesses do. And they bring the mom and pop's mentality where, if it's a restaurant, they want to offer their specialty, that something that perhaps a dish that the recipe has been in the family for years, decades, and they offer that, or whatever their specialty is. I remember this business over in West Hollywood. They're specialized in shoes, in actually making shoes, and they actually did that for the movie industry.
Oh wow, that's cool.
The owner was showing me the different shoes that he had made. He has these boots that he made for Batman, for example.
Cool.
And he was famous, in that area because of the quality of work that he did. He
Mhm.
passed away, unfortunately, and the business folded because, again, he was a small business,
Yeah.
but he thrived in his year.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was so excited, and I used to tell everybody about it.
That's
Y-
cool.
Yeah, but there's things that we can do to support small businesses, and sometimes the things that we can do are are really easy. Just introducing ourselves to the managers, to the business owners, and thanking them for being there. Let them know that you appreciate them. And if there's anything you can do to help them support, to please let them know. And a lot of times they'll give you the business card and they tell you, hey, come back this day. We're having this, we're having that.
Mm.
And I want you to meet somebody else, or they point you to someone that may have be having some issues, some other business, because they all talk. They all talk to
Oh,
each
yeah.
unless they're
Yeah.
company, right?
Hmm. That's great, Carlos. Yeah, I mean that's so important. Like we focus a lot on, doing the organizing on various issues like around healthcare or minimum wage or housing, etc. But we also have to remember that we do have our local businesses, our mom and pop shops, and that they're also part of this community and they're also part of this struggle in their own way, because it is a struggle between these mega corporations that come in, they suck out the creativity, the character, the color of the town, and everything becomes the same. They suppress the wages, like we show with this example with Starbucks. Like these wages are not living wages, $12,000 a year, while their CEO is making 100 and 1,200 times the amount as the average employee. Like that doesn't happen in a mom and pop shop. That's not possible. And that's what we lose when we allow these corporations to come in. So that's another battle that is tied with our overall struggle as progressive, as people on the left, as people who are united with workers and united with community, that we have to always keep in mind too.
Right.
So, and I usually don't talk to the managers at restaurants, but I just don't like talking.
Right. But try it. Try it with your friends, especially when you go in a group.
Mhm.
Ask to speak to the manager. You'll come out. Or the first thing that I usually do, I say, is the owner here? You know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I know who the owner is. I want to see their faces. And a lot of times, they go in the back, and here comes, I see somebody dressed like a cook, right?
Mm.
And I'm like, I asked for the owner,
I'm
you know?
like, I
And
am the owner.
that makes me feel so good,
That's nice. Yeah,
so much about the business.
that's awesome. Well,
You know,
next time we go to dinner, Carlos, we'll
yes,
practice that.
have the person that is serving you, and they tell you, well, I'm the owner. And you're like, wow, I'm talking to the man himself.
Or
Like,
woman.
it is beautiful experience just to meet these people. Because you got to remember, small businesses, they taking a huge risk.
Yeah.
Some of them saved their money all their life and decided, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to open
Yeah.
up a small business. I
Yeah.
always wanted to do this. That's what they usually tell me.
Oh, that's great.
I always wanted to open this kind of store. And I can see it in their eyes, in their conversation, you know, uh, how deep it is within them, the desire to be able to serve their community by opening a small business.
Yeah.
That may be. There's a lady out here in West LA that sells uh, baby clothes, just anything that has to do with babies.
Mm.
This is what she loves, and she was telling me how she always used to put away stuff that she used to see from wherever she traveled, for babies. And
Mm.
so much piled up, she decided to open up a baby store.
That's awesome.
You know, and it was unique because she had items from all over the world. You
That's
know,
cool. Yeah,
Yes,
it's amazing. This is what's great about people. Everybody has their own interests, things that get them excited, and they want to share that with you. And I think that's so important. And we have to really grow that and like allow that to exist, because the more diversity of ideas and things that we have to share, I think the richer we are and the better we are as a society, because when we're thinking about so many different ideas and throwing them out there, some of them are going to be really great and they're going to change the way we think about life and the way that we structure our lives, and
right,
hopefully usually for the better. And when we have this consolidation of power, this consolidation of ideas and control within a few people, that really limits us. And I want to tie it back to climate change. I think that that is also a reason why we're stuck and we're not right now able to make the things that we need happen. We're not able to make them happen because there's a consolidation of ideas amongst a handful of people who are really just not able to imagine a new way of living, a new society, a way to exist without fossil fuels, without living in such an extractive uh, lifestyle. And it's time for us to destroy this consolidation of ideas and bring out the ideas of the communities and of the people, of the indigenous, of everybody, around the world. Everybody's got ideas, and I'm seeing that in pockets here and there in different areas, especially online. I follow some people who are interested in energy and stuff, and I'm seeing some really interesting things happening on the ground. And I am hoping that we see more of that, and I'm hoping, Carlos, that people start bringing out more of their ideas and acting on them and taking that risk, and that the community can support these risks, because we're going to be better off if we do. So that's really inspiring. But thank you for sharing these stories, Carlos. These mom and pop shops. It's amazing.
by the way, the name of the shoe store was
Mm-hmm. What
Andre.
was what? Sorry.
Andre?
Oh, Andre.
Yeah, that was his name, Andre. And it was right here on Fairfax and Sunset. And interestingly, that right next door, there is they recently moved, but there's a restaurant called The Griddle. Very famous. They serve breakfast. And
Mm.
I remember when she was the owner, uh, I'm trying to remember her name because that was maybe like 20 years ago. Lisa, I believe it was her name.
Mm-hmm.
She was trying to open up the restaurant, and
Mm.
literally days before her grand opening, her her chef quit. She didn't have
Oh.
a chef,
Oh
and
my
so it happened
gosh.
that I knew somebody on my route where I used to deliver mail that he had recently retired as one of the main chefs for Fox uh, company, that the big corporation.
Oh. Uh huh.
And so I talked to him, and he came over there to help.
Oh wow, that's great.
And today she's one of the most successful restaurants in Los Angeles. She's huge.
Wow.
And but look it, whatever it is, market, climate change, infrastructure, any issue that you can think about that you care about, we got to get involved. We got to talk to one another. That's where it starts. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
unions. It starts with you,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I always remind that myself, that everything starts with me. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that
Right.
in a motivating way.
Mm-hmm.
If I
Mm-hmm.
want something done, if something needs to be changed, well, I ask myself, well, what are you doing about
Right. Exactly. Yeah. We can't expect other people to do it, right? We have to do it ourselves. We have to take the initiative. We have to start it, and other people will join us, or maybe somebody else is also try to do the same thing, and you can come together, unite, and do good together. But we have to just say to ourselves, look, this needs to be fixed. What can I do to fix it?
it? Right. Because we have a lot of critics. The
Mm-hmm.
world about, and and we have critics everywhere. Everybody likes to offer their opinion, but very few are actually
Mm-hmm.
doing some things.
Exactly.
You know, if I ask 10 people for their opinions, 10
Mm-hmm.
people will give opinions. If I ask 10 of those people that gave me their opinions to get involved in something, I get lucky if I have one of them that will actually take.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
those are the. But I could only answer for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I am on my way to downtown Los Angeles to Skid Row because there's an organization over there that need a little help, and we're gonna go give them a little help today. Very excited for New Year's Day. We're gonna be at the Rose Parade. We're going to be highlighting climate change. The world cannot wait. That's the theme of our march for the Rose Parade. And I know, Margaret, you say that you're going to be here, right?
Yes, I'll be there. I will. I'll be there for the Rose Parade. The World Cannot Wait Climate Action March.
Yes.
I'll be
So
half asleep, but I'll be there.
I'm in conversations with this company that they actually build giant inflatables. So we are trying to obtain a giant whirl, at least 15 feet high, like huge one, an inflatable one that we can, introduce at the Rose Parade with a theme, the world cannot wait. It's going to be exciting. Uh, we are planning already. We're organizing. We're asking volunteers to come out and to participate. I'm going to be circulating a volunteers list so that you can sign up. But it's a very nice time of the year to get out there and start the year right
Mhm.
by standing up, by saying that this year, 2022, is going to be a year of action for me. I'm planning to be out on the streets. I'm planning to be standing up. I'm planning to be counted. I'm planning to take action and not stay home sleep.
Mhm.
I'm planning to talk less and do more. That's what the significance for this March is. It's a year of action, and we have to take on so many issues. Climate change being on top of the list.
Absolutely. Very excited for 2022. I think it's going to be a good year. I think we're going to get a lot of good things done in the progressive movement with working class people coming together, uniting, organizing, forming unions, and fighting back. And as this show is titled, Stand Up, Fight Back, that's what we must do in order to secure our future. So, very excited, Carlos. I can't wait for it. And I just want to thank all of our viewers for being with us today because we are out of time. And if you came in late, you're watching Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis for the progressive movement. I'm Margot Paez, your co host. Over here is Carlo Marroquin, your other awesome co host on this show. We air every 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We simulcast on Facebook and YouTube. Unfortunately, our homepage, the Bernie Sanders Brigade page, is still mysteriously under review. So we are not able to broadcast there right now, which is why we're asking all of our viewers to please follow the link below here and subscribe to us on YouTube at Insight Out News. And that way you never miss a show. Turn on notifications, and we'll be here every Sunday. So take care. Have a really, really great week. Stay safe. Get vaccinated. Get the booster. And be careful. We'll talk to you soon.
Stay safe. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.